Patterns allow us to empower applications by easily adding new features. When we apply a pattern, GeneXus creates all the necessary objects to provide the desired behavior without the need for us to program them. For example, let's suppose that even though we have the countries transaction to add, change, and delete countries, we also want to have an attractive page to query countries and show all the existing countries following the Fiori design style. It should allow us to filter by country name and enable us to go to the countries transaction to add a new country, change an existing country, or delete it. To quickly implement this, there's a pattern called Fiori List Report for Web, and we will see how to apply it to the country transaction. This pattern is available for web applications and for smart device applications, even though for them, it'll be called Work With for Smart Devices. Basically, it'll be the same pattern. We will see it later. Both patterns can be found in the Patterns tab of the country transaction. To obtain the web pattern, we only need to select that tab and click on Apply this pattern on Save and save. Now, if we place the country transaction here, we can see that below the transaction there are several objects, which were created by GeneXus when the pattern was applied. These objects will be implemented by the web screens of the pattern, which we will see next. Before pressing F5, note that once again, GeneXus has configured the Launchpad object as Startup Object. Therefore, the developer menu will no longer be compiled and run, and this special object containing all the Fiori List reports that we apply to the knowledge base transactions will be compiled and run instead. This Launchpad object is a GeneXus object that was automatically created and can be found here. It's of web panel type. That is to say, it implements a web screen. We will also be able to create web panels through web panel objects, as it was automatically done by GeneXus for this object. We will not talk about it in this course, but you can look for it in the GeneXus 15 course, not specialized in SAP. What's described there applies to SAP. Now, we press F5 to view at runtime everything that has been automatically generated by applying the pattern. The Launchpad with Fiori design is displayed in the browser, offering a tile with a link to work with countries. In addition, it shows the number of registered countries. Here we can see the list of the 3 existing countries. In it, we can perform operations such as the following. We can view the entire details of a country, such as France. There, as we can see, we have the General tab that shows general information about the country and buttons to update that information or delete the country. Also, there's an Attraction tab that will show all the attractions recorded for the country being displayed. We're also able to directly update a country's details. This screen belongs to the country transaction, where the navigation buttons have been hidden because we're positioned in the selected country. Likewise, we can delete the country. Since it's calling the transaction in delete mode, and the country has related attractions, we've just seen them, the Louvre Museum and the Eiffel Tower, we're not allowed to delete it. If we tried to delete Brazil, which doesn't have any attractions recorded, we could do so by simply selecting Confirm. We cancel so as not to delete it, and we're taken again to the list of countries. We may also insert a new country. Here, the transaction is also opened. Let's add United States. We can run filters over the countries displayed by name. Here, we return to the home page, which is the Launchpad. We easily applied the pattern to the country transaction, and now we will apply it to the attraction transaction. We press F5. Just like in the previous case, we're offered the tile to work with attractions, with the number of attractions recorded. Again, if we change the screen size, the information displayed is adjusted. In this case, instead of showing all the attraction attributes, only the name is displayed. Here we have the same query features that we saw for work with countries. What is displayed and the behavior of all these screens can be customized. For example, suppose that we don't want the indicator of the number of attractions to be displayed in the Launchpad. In the tile corresponding to the countries, we want to show an icon that represents them here. So far, we had only selected Apply this pattern on save without paying attention to this tree of configurable values. Everything we see at runtime is determined here. For example, clicking on the root, among the properties of the pattern applied to this country transaction, we will see these two. The first one determines if the number of countries will be shown in the Launchpad tile. It's set to true by default, and that's why we saw that number at runtime. The second one allows setting an icon. Here, the icon's code is set according to the Fiori design guidelines. In the attraction pattern, we remove the number. We press F5, and at runtime, it looks like this. In addition, suppose that we don't want the attractions list report to show the country identifier or the category identifier. To do so, we open the list report node, and under the attributes subnode, we see all the attributes displayed in the form when the screen size allows it. We delete those we don't want to see. And we press F5. Now suppose that we want to allow the user to not only filter what's displayed in that grid by attraction name, but also by country. For example, we want to see all the attractions of France. To do so, we select the Filter node. Over the Attributes node, we choose Select Attributes, and there we select country name. We will be asked if we want to add the corresponding filtering conditions, and we will say yes because it's exactly what we want. We see how it has added a filter by that attribute. We press F5 to see it at runtime. Also, we see how this variable is displayed to filter by country. So if we enter France, the filter is applied. We may also want to disable some or all of the insert, update, and delete actions for this panel. To do so, we would click on the Modes node and change the value of the corresponding property. These default values are specified in a centralized location that we will see next. Obviously, the default value of the insert, update, and delete properties is set to true. To disable the delete operation, we would set this property to false. In this way, the delete column will be deleted. There are more customization options available that we would like you to explore. Here, we've only seen some for the list report panel of attractions, but we can also customize the panel that displays the details of the selected attraction. This panel's definitions are located under this node. In this case, there's a single tab called General because an attraction doesn't have any more related information. However, note what happens for a country. It has one tab for the country's general information and another tab to show the related attractions. In GeneXus, the tree includes both tabs. This is only part of what can be easily achieved. Next, we will see the equivalent pattern for the native app in a mobile environment. Before leaving the web application, let's mention something important. The Launchpad only includes tiles with the Fiori List reports defined in the knowledge base. For example, in our case, we haven't applied the pattern to the customer transaction, so we can't invoke it from the Launchpad. There's a predefined object in the knowledge base, the procedure called list programs, which obtains the collection of programs to be included in the Launchpad. When the pattern Fiori List Report for Web is applied to a new transaction, this procedure is modified to include a tile with the new pattern. Since the Launchpad will be the main object of the web application, it'll surely require tiles to invoke other objects, in addition to those listed. For example, web panels created by the developer. We may even want some of the Fiori List reports not to be displayed in the Launchpad. The developer can easily achieve this by creating an object of procedure type that receives in a parameter the list of programs created by list programs, and handles it according to the Launchpad's requirements. For example, it may delete some of the programs, tiles, or insert new ones. Let's add a tile to invoke the customer transaction. To do so, we create a procedure. We define the rule that allows indicating the parameters received and/or returned by the object. In this case, we will define an input-output variable that will assume the predefined structured data type program names, because we give it the same name as the data type. This data type allows recording the collection of programs to be invoked. As we can see, it's a collection of a simple structured data type corresponding to a tile's information. We also define an internal variable of the procedure for this data type. In the procedure source, we load the necessary elements of the tile we want to add. Here, for the indicator of the number of customers, we will use the same count formula we've seen before. However, note that this time it's a local or inline formula. That is to say, it's not associated with an attribute, and it's only triggered in this procedure when this statement is run. Next, we add this tile to the collection of program names. Lastly, we will have to set the following. When the Launchpad invokes the predefined list programs procedure that automatically loads this collection, before the action is complete, it should invoke this procedure we've just created. This can be done by opening Preferences below Patterns, which show the default general properties of every Fiori List pattern applied to any transaction. They can later be customized every time the pattern is applied. Here is where the default values we've seen before are defined. For example, that the insert action is enabled. The possible configurations include the list program's dynamic procedure node. We replace the none value with our procedure. We see that the customer's tile is invoking the customer transaction. In the next video, we will see what happens when the smart devices pattern is applied.